In 1239, after nearly a year of campaigning, the Mongol armies, tired but victorious, moved to the Ukraine to rest, take stock, and plan their next move. The Mongol advance to the edge of Europe was the furthest west any Asian people had come since Attila the Hun 1,000 years earlier. The imminent encounter with Christendom would be one between two completely different worlds. The Mongols had an array of weapons that had never been seen in Europe. At the heart of the Mongol army was the archer. Whether mounted or on foot, he wielded a bow of terrifying power. This was the Asian or compound bow, made from yak horn and bamboo. Horn and bamboo were glued together and then bound until they set into a single piece. When the bow was strung, it was stressed against the natural curve, creating massive tension and allowing the archer to send an arrow much further and faster than any European opponent. The Mongol arrow had also evolved into a sophisticated missile. By varying the flight and weight of the wood, the Mongol archer had a large selection of projectiles to choose from. Arrows that would pierce mail, carry messages, make a whistling noise through the air, or even deliver explosives. The mounted archer would fire at full gallop more than a dozen shots a minute. In comparison, the latest in European technology was the crossbow. Although powerful, it had only half the range of the Mongol bow and was slow and cumbersome. A typical European army of the time was made up of a motley collection of troops, led by a variety of knights and local nobility. They in turn owed some kind of allegiance to the king. Unlike the Mongol leaders, the nobles may or may not have had warfare experience. To make up the numbers, groups of peasants were drafted, often at the last minute. But the strength of the army was still the cavalry. Some of these horsemen would have been knights from the various holy orders, the Knights Templars, Hospitallers, and Teutonic Knights. They were warrior monks bound by religious ritual, celibacy, vows of poverty, and devotion to the church. Though they spent much of the time practicing the arts and rituals of war, they were not experienced at fighting as part of disciplined units. They preferred individual hand-to-hand combat with their enemy, assuming, of course, that they ever got that close. But the greatest distinction between the two armies was the European development of protective armor. A full suit of armor was very heavy and weighed down a European knight considerably. Over the woolen stockings, he wore mail leggings that laced all the way up to the crotch. These alone weighed 20 pounds each. Then there was the mail shirt, another 50 or even 60 pounds. In contrast, the Mongol warrior wore a silk undershirt, a defense against arrows. The worst harm an arrow makes is when it is removed from a wound. The barbed head tears away at the flesh. But silk is not punctured by an arrow, but carries into the wound, twisting around the head of the arrow. So by carefully pulling the shirt out of the wound, the arrow can be removed without tearing the flesh. The knight's tunic was ineffective against Mongol arrows. Over a felt tunic, the Mongol wore a leather cuirass. It weighed about 20 pounds.